History tells us otherwise and depicts this as a fatal flaw in error in judgment. It's one of the reasons the Founding Fathers provided checks and balances to government through the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's why Americans have a Second Amendment. It's number 2 on the list. And Amendment number 1, the freedom of speech, is protected by number 2. Government is responsible for more non-natural death than any other cause in the history of the world. According to R.J. Rummel, leading political scientist in the field of democide, the number 1 cause of democide, who created the term as an extended concept to include forms of government murder that are not covered by the term genocide, in one example has counted over 43 million deaths as a result of government democide inside and outside the Soviet Union during Stalin's regime. His detailed research shows that throughout history, the death toll from democide is far greater than the death toll from the cause of war. For example, after studying over 8,000 reports of government-caused deaths, Rummel estimates that there have been over 262 million victims of democide in the last century alone. According to his figures, 6 times as many people have died from the inflictions of people working for governments than have died in battle. One of his main findings is that liberal democracies have much less democide than authoritarian regimes, and he argues that there is a relationship between political power and democide. His findings show that political mass murder grows increasingly common as political power becomes unconstrained. At the other end of the scale, where power is diffuse, checked, and balanced, political violence is a rarity. According to Rummel, the more power a regime has, the more likely people will be killed. This is a major reason for promoting freedom, and Rummel concludes that concentrated political power is the most dangerous thing on earth. Are President Barack Obama's executive orders on gun control an attempt to concentrate political power? Even those critics that refute Rummel's findings and wholly trust their own government have a tendency not to trust other governments. So why would they encourage a potential ground invasion in America as a result of stricter gun control by supporting Obama's 23 executive orders and recommendations to Congress? So Al-Qaeda and other terrorist networks can catch America once again with their pants down like they did on September 11th? Or a brazen foreign government can invade the United States with ground troops? What happens when there's another natural disaster like Hurricane Katrina, and the federal government declares martial law and confiscates guns as a result of an unexpected emergency? Do the American people seriously want to be completely disarmed at a time of chaos, violence, and anarchy in their streets? Have we learned anything from history at all? And you see, this is why President Barack Obama's 23 executive orders are so dangerous. Because it sets a precedent for future gun control, the concentration of political power, and increases the chances for tyranny in the future. This is what history tells us. Obama's executive orders and recommendations to Congress for stricter gun control are a direct infringement of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, and Americans' right to self-defense. It prohibits Americans from forming a well-regulated militia and is diametrically opposed to the founding of this nation. Guns are what founded America, and any infringement on that right is the declaration of war against the American people. It's not that President Obama or Vice President Joe Biden don't like guns. President Obama, his family, and most of the powerful people in Washington and on Wall Street are protected heavily by guns. They are protected by Secret Service with assault rifles and armed bodyguards. These armed guards protect their children and their families. Are the rest of America's children not valued the same, or as equally as the Washington elite? Obama has said countless times that America's number one priority is to protect our children. So why aren't Americans allowed to protect their children with the same weapons of self-defense President Barack Obama uses for his own? Obama's 23 executive orders and recommendations to Congress don't seem to be concerned with the safety of Americans or the safety of their children, but instead appear to be focused on power, absolute power, and total control over the American people. President Obama knows his history better than most Americans, and it appears he is taking advantage of it. Is Barack Obama's political agenda of American disarmament and stricter gun control really intended to protect Americans and American children? Or is it being used to protect somebody or something else? Is history repeating itself? It looks like President Obama's executive orders on gun control are intended to protect its political leadership. The question is, do you trust them?
Definitely thought-provoking. We'll be right back after this short break.
The Think Tank is the newest show on Spreaker. Sure, we bring you news and the current events and politics, but we also make it funny. Enough of the seriousness of all these shows, enough of the nitty-gritty and everything else. Let's have a show that's fun and funny. Bronco Drew and BK bring it to you every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central Time. The Think Tank on Spreaker.com.
In this time of political power grabs, endless bureaucracy, the creation of czars, the trampling of your constitutional rights, turn to the Ronald Boyd Show for clear, intelligent, and concise conservative opinion. Only on Spreaker.com.
It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact. The TSA is out on the streets. The FBI is spying on you. And you are in the crosshairs of the New World Order. Come listen to The Views Expressed with your host, Reverend Wayne S. Pierce. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Right here on Spreaker.com.
Government handouts, the progressives' Viagra. The only thing free here is the truth. You're listening to the Conservative Radio Network.
Jeff Wagner back with you on the Conservative Voice, on the Conservative Radio Network. Logic over emotion, fact over fiction, the home of independent conservative thought. So we just got done listening to about an hour and 5 minutes or so It was called The Executive Obama's Real Reason Why He Wants Your Guns, and you can check it out on amtvmedia.com. Check it out there, amtvmedia.com. I recommend you do because you'll notice the music in there. During that time there was quite a bit of text, especially during the first segment where, well, I'll tell you what you missed. Basically, the text was talking about the Benghazi attack and the evidence that Ambassador Stevens was involved in transporting weapons. It gave some specific examples, a ship from Libya, for example. But anyway, there's some weapons running going on there, and the theory is that is why the attack occurred and why he was killed. But again, I recommend that you go check out the whole thing, amtvmedia.com. You've heard the comparisons before from others, either on Spreaker or elsewhere perhaps, that relate, the whole disarmament of the citizenry to past dictators, if you will, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, and others. And of course, the first thing that you get in response is, well, you can't be serious. You're not comparing Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler. And the answer to that, the argument to that is no. We're comparing the elimination of individuals' rights, and in our case, constitutional rights, to past history and the result of those rights being taken away. The first thing that comes to my mind is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think that it turns, as was said in this special, it turns from a game of inches to a game of feet. The more liberties and freedoms you're willing to give up in exchange for some perceived safety, the more you're going to be giving up down the road. And I think that in this case, the perceived safety is a fallacy. I think, the argument was made very well in this special that we just listened to. I think that it's right on, as I said in the very beginning. The criminals don't care. Obviously, if you're going to murder somebody, you don't care if you're violating a law that says you shouldn't have a gun. And I thought that the statistics comparing the United States and the trend of downward violent acts versus Great Britain and our buddy Pierce, who loves to spout, or at least had been talking quite a bit about countries like Great Britain and only telling part of the story with their record on violent crime, to the point of ad nausea, I guess. But anyway, this whole conversation leads me to another area, and that area specifically is regarding the violence that's occurring in the inner cities, the black-on-black crime, and the fact that now I'm a conservative. I do not consider myself a Republican. Obviously, I am more in line with Republicans, or I'd like to believe that they would be more in line with me. So I vote more on the Republican ticket. No surprise there, I'm sure. But I do think that there needs to be a focus on getting the vote, or the at least the message, out to the inner cities. And I do believe that the conservatives have the better message, and I do think that when you have over 90% of blacks voting for Barack Obama, you should be alarmed by that. Some people admit that they're voting for him just because of his skin color, but I would say that most of them are voting for Barack Obama because nobody else seems to come in and give a damn. Nobody is bringing a message to them. Nobody is, I don't want to say courting them, but nobody is treating them as valid citizens by